Okay, hi, I'm Bert from Reflexer Labs, and I know the title is a little provocative, just a little bit, but hopefully I can convince you that RAI is the first stablecoin. Okay, so when you think of stablecoins, you might think of these. These are dollar-pegged centralized assets. These are essentially certificates for off-chain USD. So when you hold these, you have to have, there's third-party trust involved. You have to believe that there's a dollar off-chain somewhere that corresponds to your digital representation. Because they represent USD, they are also motivated to follow AML guidance. So the digital representation online, they all have blacklists, basically. These are the USDC and USDT blacklists. You can see the trend there. As I was making this, the number kept going up. I had to keep updating the graph. Those are centralized stables. You might also think of these are dollar-pegged decentralized stables. So these are stables that are represented, at least in some part, by crypto collateral. And then there's unpegged decentralized stables. And that's RAI. RAI is a fork of the MakerDAO DAI codebase. Everyone knows DAI, 10 billion DAI in circulation. And okay, this is one of the issues with decentralized stablecoins that RAI was born to fix. Supply-demand imbalance, okay? And what that means is the market price of a stablecoin is not trading at the redemption value of the coin. Why does this happen? All collateral-backed stablecoins exist as debt to someone who has minted them against their collateral. So if there's excess supply or excess demand, the market price will deviate. Most common with collateral shocks. If a coin's backed by collateral, the collateral drops. People that own the debt in that coin don't want to get liquidated, so they buy their coin, and you get these scenarios here. Why is this bad? Okay, so if you don't want to get liquidated and you own debt in one of these coins, when you pay your debt back, you're getting $1 worth of credit in the system. But if the market is deviated like this, you have to pay extra just to pay your debt back. You might have to buy the coin at $1.05 on the market just to get $1 worth of credit in the system. So is this stable? In these situations, in these time frames, these behavior of collateral-backed stablecoins, I think you can say it's not stable. Okay, and that's how RAI was born. So a history of MakerDAO is up here. Single collateral DAI launched in 2017. It was backed only by Ether. There is a technical spec envisioned at Maker called the Purple Paper, and this was how to deal with the supply-demand imbalance problem. Ultimately, the Purple Paper was not implemented, and multi-collateral DAI was launched in 2019. The reason it wasn't implemented was the PMF of DAI was, the Maker team really wanted one DAI to always be equal to $1. That's what it boils down to. So RAI looked back and said, you know what, we think the Purple Paper should have been implemented. We think fixing the supply-demand imbalance problem is more important than always being worth $1. So RAI is only backed by Ether. We think Ether is first layer money. So we want a stable coin that is only represents our first layer money. Minimal governance. So this is a core value of the team and the protocol. Did anyone read Ray Dalio's book this year on the history of reserve currencies? Anybody? Okay. So my takeaway from that book is that every reserve currency has failed in history because of humans. So humans eventually become externally motivated, and they don't make the correct decisions for the system. So we recognize that. We recognize the fallibility of humans. And we do not want to have governance. We are not going to have governance meetings. We're not going to be voting on parameters. We're not going to have any of that. This is eventually going to be, RAI is going to be for you. It's not going to be ours. It's going to be for the community. That's a core value of ours. Algorithmic rates, that's how stability is achieved. I'll explain that more. And because of the algorithmic rates, we end up having a floating redemption value. So it's different than most all dollar peg stablecoins. Okay, how is RAI made? It's made like any other collateral-backed stablecoin. User locks Ether in a reflexor safe. And with that Ether as collateral, you can mint RAI as a loan with a very small annual rate. Right now it's 0.5%. So once you mint RAI, you can do whatever you want to. Usually involves market selling it and going long another crypto or farming or going leverage long ETH. It's up to you. So those are the minters. And then there's people who just want to buy and sell stables. So entering and exit stables as your outlook on the market changes. Okay, how is RAI stabilized? So first, some definitions. The redemption price, that's the face value of RAI. That is the backing, the amount of Ether that backs each RAI. That's enforced through a process called global settlement that we inherited from Maker. If the system was ever to go through this, then one RAI would be redeemable for that amount of Ether. And then the market price. So we're going to define it. We're not going to act like it doesn't exist. We're not going to hope it just trades at the right value. We're going to define it because we're going to influence it with the money god. That's Reflexor's mascot, is the money god. The money god's an autonomous smart contract controller that makes decisions to stabilize. Its sole purpose is to drive the market price to trade at the redemption price. Okay, quick overview of feedback control. It's a type of feedback control. It's the controller. So it's a loop. You have a controller. The controller does something to a system, and the system produces an output that is measured. So input to this feedback control is a target value. We have an actual value coming from the system. And the controller looks at the error, the difference between the target and the actual value. And then the controller provides some system input. In physical systems, this could be opening a valve for controlling fluid, could be controlling voltage, temperature, a variety of things. So filling up a glass of water at a sink is feedback control, okay? Your hand on the knob is the controller, the system is the faucet, the cup, the water, your eyes looking at the water rising as it gets towards the target, and then that's feedback, and as you see it approaching, you control with your hands, you slow the water down. Okay, so money god, it's a type of feedback control called a PI controller. All you need to know about that is it considers two types of error. It looks at current error, and then it looks at historical error. Just like when a central bank meets to determine rates, they look at what's going on with the economy right now, and then what's been going on the past 8 weeks. It's the most common type of controller deployed in like industrial control. It's good for noisy systems. And there's even research that shows that modern monetary policy resembles this type of control. PI is a subset of PID control. So we think we're going in the right direction. Okay, I think this is a video, a simulation of what a PI controller looks like. So let's use the example of like a heating system in your car. You're going to turn the dial to the red value. The system is the blue value. It's going to adapt. The green is the error. You can ignore the green. So you get in your car. It's 30 degrees outside, and you want it to be 70. So you turn the dial up, and the system starts to respond, probably sending voltage to a heat coil or something in a car. I don't know. You want it to be hotter, so you turn the dial up. The system responds. You want it to be colder. System responds and attempts to converge. And if you can't make up your mind, the system will still attempt to converge, even if it can't all the way. It's called marginal stability. Okay, so how do we use the principles of feedback control to make a stablecoin trade at its redemption value? Okay, our desired market price is the face value of RAI. It's the redemption value. That's what we want the market to trade at. And the actual market price is where it is trading. So we have a smart contract that looks at the difference, and it sets a RAI rate, and that is going to appreciate or depreciate RAI and influence the market to converge. So our previous example before with the other stablecoins and the elevated market price, if we have that with RAI, in this situation we have the market way up, so the controller needs to create sell demand. And how does it do that? Oops, little lag, a lot of lag. So it decreases the redemption value, okay, to influence people to sell. If you hold RAI, it's depreciating, you're going to sell it. If you are a minter, your future debt is getting cheaper, so it makes sense to mint. And when you mint, you usually sell. So everyone is incentivized to sell. And the money god will do that until there's convergence. And the opposite for the opposite scenario. Market's trading under. We need to create buy demand. And all participants are incentivized to buy. Okay, so how's it going? This is our V3 RAI pool from about the last 8 months. A lot of volatility in the beginning when it launched, but I wanted to include that. Redemption price of RAI is in red, and the market, the spot market, is in black. So you can see we started at about 302 over this period, and we ended at 302.5. After our initial volatility, the total deviation, percent deviation after August was about plus or minus 1% was the max. So you can see the controller opposes the market to induce convergence. So after August, this period of the market's under, the redemption price is positive. Finally, here we had our curve pool. Our curve pool came online, so we had a lot of demand for RAI, and so the market went up, and the redemption value was decreased, and eventually that'll converge. So it's free floating, but at any time the amount of ether that backs each RAI is equal to the redemption price in red. Okay, so why is RAI the first stablecoin? Okay, it ensures the stability of the market price to the redemption value. Okay, this is important. You're not stuck with long periods of time where you have to pay a premium on your debt to repay your debt. And the important thing, it can do this and only be backed by ether. Okay? I forgot to mention something back when we had all the 3 charts of the deviations. Most stable coins deal with that. Let's go back, because this is sort of important. Okay. How do most stable coins prevent this or deal with it? They put other stable coins in their system as collateral. That's the common way to deal with this. Typically it's USDC, maybe it's a decentralized coin that is ultimately backed by USDC. So they avoid this by centralized collateral. And that's the one thing we did not want to do, because we're about minimal governance and ETH only backing RAI. Okay. So again, we can force convergence of market to the redemption and maintain the purity of ETH only collateral. And the icing on top, it's completely autonomous with a smart contract controller. Okay, governance minimization. This is our timeline. We're minimizing it. We're freezing parameters. The first phase is in April. We don't want to have control. The second phase is in August. That's happening. What's going to remain ungoverned at that point will be the PI parameters and oracles. PI parameters because we're still fine-tuning, and we want to make sure we're we have the best parameters. We've just turned on the historical error. I mentioned PI Controller has 2 types of error. We're looking at enabling the historical error soon. And so we want to fine tune that to make sure it gives the right trade-offs. And then oracles. Oracles are third party, so we don't want a long-term dependency. We don't want a third party to be able to take the system down by turning off an oracle. So those will remain. Okay, and so last year's been pretty busy with integrations. We've had about 40 integrations. We have several DAOs holding RAI as a reserve currency. We're on several lending platforms, some L2s, exchanges. So I've been pretty busy. Okay, so in closing. Okay, all of these on the left, these are dollar-pegged coins. They are equal to $1 always. That's the redemption value. But 1 RAI is equal to 1 RAI. Thank you.